I'm sorry for the delay. So our meeting is back in session at 6:06. Stacy, can you take a roll call? Attendance?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Councilman Gary Donovan. Councilman Gary Donovan. Councilwoman Colleen O'Connor.
Councilman Colleen O'Connor at large here.
Councilwoman Bridget Hosky.
Councilwoman Bridget Hosky, First District, present.
Councilman William X. Conlon.
Councilman William X. Conlon, Second District, present.
Councilwoman Elizabeth Johnston. I understand she's absent. Councilman Mitchell Galagnano.
Councilman Mitchell Galagnano, 4th District, present.
Councilwoman Robin Hamilton.
Councilwoman Robin Hamilton, 5th District, here.
Councilman Peter Mazzaro.
Councilman Peter Massaro, 6th District, is present.
Councilwoman Trenae McGee. I understand she's absent. Councilwoman Crystal Finelli.
Councilwoman Crystal Finelli, 8th District, present.
Councilman Robert Bruno.
Councilman Robert Bruno, 9th District, present.
Councilman Barry Lee Cohen.
Councilman Barry Lee Cohen, 10th District, present.
And Chairman Ronald Quagliani.
Ron Quagliani, Councilman at Large, present.
Okay, we're all set.
I'm trying to see everybody that's here. Hold on. Why is this? Is the chief here? Because for whatever reason. Or no?
The chief is here. The chief is here.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I can't see everybody. So Chief, if you want to go ahead and do your presentation, if you have any words.
I thank you, and I thank the council for this opportunity. We are currently at a staffing level of 118 officers. Several of the officers are still in training. They are not available to us for shift work. We expect all of them to be available, the 118, by the mid to end of June. Of those 118, I'm sure that everyone would like to know that 61 of them are pensioned officers, 57 are officers working with a 401. We currently are in recruitment, hopefully for a class that has yet to be determined. And I am available to answer any questions at any time. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll start with the Finance Committee. I do apologize, I can't see everybody. Can't really raise our hands. I'll start with Councilwoman Hamilton. Did you have any questions for the chief?
Not at this time.
Councilman Massaro?
Not at this time right now, Councilman Hosky.
Okay. Councilman Cohen, do you have any questions for the chief?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
Good evening. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions, a couple of clarifications, actually. And before I start, I don't want it to go unnoticed that last February, the police department and the union of the police department, they really stepped up where I know the last couple of years there's been wage freezes in 2018 and 2019, and effective later this year is only a 1% increase for 2021. So once again, I know I said it before, but I'd like to thank the police again for really negotiating in good faith with our HR folks in the city of West Haven. And also that includes $149,000 in health insurance savings that we're getting between the annual health contributions. So again, thank you so much. I also was curious that I know what the submitted mayor's budget is, and I reviewed your worksheets, and I saw there was about a $338,000 differential between what you initially were doing on your worksheets and the final sum. And I just wanted to confirm that that 338 differential is more or less positions that you eventually want to fill, but we're not filling yet. Like there's one captain, there's 3 detectives level B, and a patrol officer. Does that sound about right? I'm just trying to understand the differential that I know what was in the mayor's budget proposed versus your worksheets. Was it more the personnel salaries? Can you comment on that for me?
I will start at the captains. At one time, the department had 4. We are currently at 2. I have in the past asked for and/or funded those at $1 just to keep the position there so it did not disappear. This year, with the change and the number of young officers we have on the department, I thought it would be prudent to request a 3rd captain just for supervisory capabilities and accountability. The other officers, as far as the detectives, at one time we had lost 3 during a prior administration, and I was requesting those 3 to return. We were at 18. We now are funded for 15. It does have an impact on caseload and case handling and follow-up. The detectives that are working now have a full plate, every one of them, and the 3 detective sergeants that we have, 2 on the day shift, 1 on the 4 to 12, are doing an excellent job in keeping them managing their time efficiently. As far as the patrol officer, we received 1 extra patrol officer, and the mayor's recommended to go to 121. That always helps. Getting to 121 and staying there is always an issue.
Okay.
But that difference is probably in the salaries that were requested assigned to those positions and what was recommended by the mayor.
Okay, thank you. So it's about 5 positions, basically. I'm going through that with you. And my only last question, because I believe we have a 2-question limit, I believe, if we're going to follow our past protocols, if you will, and this is just a hypothetical. If you were to, let's say, add 1 patrol officer, because there's 1 patrol, you had, the budget shows that we're adding a patrol officer. If you were to add a 2nd patrol officer, I'm not asking you for specific, but about how much overtime do you think that you would save versus the cost, including health and benefits in other words, we hired a patrol officer at a certain salary with health benefits and so forth. How does that translate to overtime, or are we better off, keeping it the way it is? I'm just curious.
I have to answer that 2 ways. The health and benefits are not calculated in my budget. That is specifically city function or duty. Or as far as having 1 extra always helps. I can't tell you the exact impact because we always are under the premise of injuries, vacations, sickness. So, but all the bodies that can be provided help immensely in the day-to-day working of the officers, that they don't have to worry so much about whether or not they will go home because they're getting ordered because of short-staffed.
Okay. I appreciate that. Yeah, because I noticed that by adding, I believe it was the detective that was added, if I recall correctly, that the overtime budget was actually able to be decreased, and the overall budget's slightly higher, but I did see that the decrease in overtime was, it was a win-win for, I think, the department and the city. That's all my questions. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you, Bridget.
Thank you. Did we go through the whole finance? Oh, no. Councilman Bruno, I apologize. Did you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Bridget, thank you very much. Question for you, if you don't mind, Robert Bruno. Are all the funded pension, are all the funded positions in the current?
I kind of lost that.
Are you there, Chief?
I'm here, sir.
Are all the funded positions in the current budget at this time filled?
Are all of the positions funded? I believe, yes, they are looking at them. Plus the one that the mayor has.
Okay, and then my second question is, the upgrades that are needed for the police department that we're aware of, cameras, plumbing issues, many of the issues that you're having at the PD. Where does that money come from? Does that come out of the budget for the, does it come out of the city budget? Where are you going to get money for the help that you need to repair the police department?
Well, currently, our main issue structurally within the building is the plumbing and camera issues that we are having right now, and specifically in the cell block. That's a huge liability. We only have several of the cells that we utilize because of the problems that they have. Some have cameras, no plumbing. Some have plumbing, no cameras. The ones that have both are the ones that we use. That, I believe, is in the 5-year capital plan regarding the security camera system, and it's in under 2022. My suggestion, my request, my wish would be that that would be moved to the 2021, because then that would save us a year of not having available cells and the security cameras in the cells and within the building to cut down on liability, and for our prisoners that we have here that are housed overnight, we can at least keep an eye on them so that they don't harm themselves or an officer. As far as the other issues, we have everyday technical systems and equipment that need upgrades or are well beyond their life, end of life and support dates. They are listed for replacement, again, in the 5-year capital plan. Some of them are in 21, some of them are in 22. The server infrastructure, I believe that we discussed that at an executive session meeting at a city council. The telephone system is listed at $50,000 in 2022. Personally, I think that that's very conservative. Our phone systems right now are, to be honest with you, they're being held together by rubber bands and paper clips. As far as the other things that the technical issues that the department needs, it's probably, including the cameras and the telephone, we have put it in around $500,000 in just technical issues and system equipment that we currently need for just the daily operations.
Hey, Chief. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's all I have, Bridget.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So I'll go around the full council, because again, I'm not sure why, but I'm not able to do everybody like I was last night. I'm on a different laptop and it's a little weird. Councilwoman O'Connor, did you have any questions for the chief?
Not at this time, thank you, though.
Councilman Conlon? Is he here?
No, I'm sorry, no, nothing.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Gagliano?
No, I do not. Thank you.
I do try. Councilwoman Finelli, did you have any questions for the chief?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Councilman Bruno? Chairman? I think we're to you.
Yeah, I do have a question. So first off, Chief, my first question is who's with you?
I'm sorry?
Who's with you? Who's your staff with you? Are you by yourself?
I have Deputy Chief Fleming with me, sir.
All right, just want to take this moment, to please extend to your rank and file our appreciation for the job, not only that you're doing during this pandemic, but that you do day in and day out. So much appreciated.
I shall do that. Thank you.
Frank, I see you're square. Are you here, Frank?
Here, yes.
Frank, I actually have a couple of questions regarding the police budget for you for capital non-recurring and 5-year capital plan.
Okay.
So it looks to me that capital non-recurring under public safety says for this year, existing lease payments for 10 cars and new lease payments for 5 cars listed in the capital non-recurring.
Correct.
Then when I go down to the 5-year capital plan, the next page, 122, it shows police car replacements, $237,000.
For the capital, those different cars. What they
Help me out with that.
Yep. So what they've done in the past is, rather than bond for the vehicles, they've actually borrowed the money from a bank and effectively repaid it on a monthly basis. So that's why it's in the capital non-recurring. Personally, if you're going to do it that way, it should be part of the operating budget. But because there's so many vehicles that need to be replaced, we thought it better to run it through the actual bonding process. The life of the cars are 5 years, as opposed to a 3-year payback on the bank loans.
Mr. Chairman, may I interrupt for a second?
Sure, go ahead.
If you look under the capital non-recurring where it says existing lease 10 cars, that's the 10 cars is just a carryover from when they did bond. That's actually should be 6 cars. It should be 6 vehicles, 4 frontline and 2 admins. And the FY21, I believe that $58,000 is the last payment on that. As the one right under that where it says 5 cars, that's what we are currently waiting for in this fiscal year that we have not received yet due to reasons beyond our control, whether it be the COVID or the availability of the vehicles themselves. When you go to the 5-year capital plan, that's for other vehicles. That would be for new vehicles. So the 237-100, that would be for 5 more vehicles that we would receive in fiscal year 21.
Part of the reason that we went the lease option to, Mr. Chairman, was there was no comprehensive capital plan, so there was no bonding in place to pay for the vehicles, which of course need to be paid for on delivery. So it made it easier for the city to acquire those vehicles by borrowing the money directly from the banks and or forward leasing and paying it back over 3 or 4 years.
I'm just, I understand that premise. I'm just confused that the five new cars that the chief said he hasn't got in yet for FY '20 is 74,000, and the 5 cars that would be for FY '21 in the capital 5-year plan, 137,000. So wouldn't it be 74,000?
It would be 74, well, that payment of 74,000 would be 74 times 4. The total cost of those. Because that's 1 year, that represents 1 year of payments.
I'm sorry, Frank, I don't understand.
So, all right, so it would be, the total for those cars, there's 4, would be roughly $296,000. What you're seeing in the capital non-recurring is 1 year's worth of expense. What you're seeing in the capital plan, the 5-year plan, is the total value that we would bond to cover the additional purchase of those additional 5 vehicles.
So the 5-year plan is a purchase where the capital non-recurring is a lease payment?
Yeah, effectively what's happening is the actual annual cost for those cars that are being in the 5-year capital plan would eventually show up under the debt service number.
So wouldn't the 5 cars in the capital non-recurring for FY '20 be in this year's budget and not next year's budget?
Well, it would be 4 years worth of payments on those cars. That the capital non-recurring is a single year. It's effectively an operating budget, a multi-year operating budget.
I get it, but if we didn't receive the cars yet, we have a year's worth of money that we budgeted for that we're not using.
That we have not used, correct.
So what I'm trying to figure out is there monies amongst these two pools that we could use to push to fund some of the cameras that are in the police department. That's really what I'm trying to figure out here.
Short answer, yes. Because the current year budget of 64,200, that would have been for 12 months, or actually it would have been for 10 months. We have yet to receive those vehicles. So all of that 64,000, none of it's been spent yet.
We do expect to.
Non-recurring.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because the capital non-recurring is actually funded through the mill rate, then you're absolutely correct. That money is sitting there unused that could theoretically be repurposed.
May I interrupt again? We still have those vehicles en route to us.
But for the current year, Chief, for the current year, you wouldn't be paying $64,000 in the fiscal '20 budget, and I think that's what the chairman is referring to.
I believe we should get them before June 30th.
But we would only have to pay 1 month's worth of lease, financing payments on it, as opposed to the entire 12 months.
Then, so we would have to just back that onto the 21 fiscal year payments?
No, I think what you'd be able to do is, and I'll validate the numbers for you, Mr. Chairman, but what you could do, Chief, is with council approval, you could repurpose that unused money. Let's say that the cars don't come in until July 1st. You would be able to repurpose that $64,000 towards your cameras because the money has already been paid for through the current year's mill rate, fiscal '20's mill rate. Excuse me.
Right. So, Chief, what I'm saying is you're not out any vehicle. It's just that we have unused money sitting there where I think getting the cameras and the cell blocks of the police department to work is a critical issue. So if we have $64,000, I would suggest that, and Frank said he's going to validate it, then, ask for a transfer for the next council meeting, and you could get underway if the council approves it, to start fixing those cameras.
Right, and additional to that is that $70-something thousand in the LoCIP money that's available to us. I'm just concerned about getting them prior to July 1st and having a bill outstanding.
Well, if you get them June 1st, I mean, it would be $5,350, I think, if I divided it by the number of cars. So I think it's still a significant pool of money that you could use towards those camera replacements.
Correct.
Frank,
I'll take
one other
anything
question.
available.
Okay, thank you. My number 2 question. So Frank, the capital non-recurring accounts for 0.21 mils, right? According to the budget book. What is a mil this year? A mil equals how much money?
Roughly $2.6 million, if I'm remembering correctly.
And we may have more meetings, coming down the road regarding the 5-year capital plan, but the total 5-year capital plan, and the police department's included in that, is for FY21 potential for $18 million worth of projects, right?
Correct.
What is the model that you're using? What is the expectation of bonding? I'm sure it's not all $18 million worth. What is your projection as you look at the debt service payments over the next how many years? How much cushion are we that you allocated for bonding in FY21?
Let me find the right page here. It would be page 122 would be the capital projects. Right. And my pages here are out of order. But that entire fiscal 21 capital under the category of general purpose bonding, that's what's built in to the debt service calculation.
So the recommended budget is to recommend to fund every single project in FY21 that's listed here for $15,953,100.
That's correct. Now, don't forget that the bulk of that, $13 million of that, is the first portion of the high school.
Mm-hmm. I understand. Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Councilwoman Hassan. Thank you.
Councilman Donovan, I'm sorry, I skipped you. I should have started with you first. Do you have any questions for the chief?
No, it's okay. You saved the best for last. No, I don't. Just to reiterate what Chairman Quagliani said, Chief, applaud you and your police department for the effort that you're doing, not only through this COVID-19, but your everyday jobs that you do. That's it.
Thank you, sir. I will pass that on.
Hi, Chief. It's Councilwoman Hosky. I do have a couple of questions. Can you tell me if you guys have obtained new handheld devices?
I'm sorry, that you broke up on that, ma'am?
The new handheld devices for tickets?
For the parking tickets? We have not received those as of yet. They were ordered, we have not received them.
Okay. My second question is, have you guys in this budget year, I know when we met a couple of months ago, I had talked about possibly raising fees or going up on the charges that you apply to specific services that you guys offer. Did that happen, or did you fight against it? I don't know if you or Frank should speak to it, but I know that was something we had talked about.
I believe the last time we did a review of the fees and fines, we brought it, our values and charges in line with the area towns. And that was done in 2014, I believe, it maybe 15. So we're pretty much in line with everybody else right now as far as our parking violations and fees for anything that the police department deals with. I can't speak for any other department.
Frank, do you know if we had looked at that for the police department? From what the chief said, we did it back in 2014, 2015, but that was 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah, as far as I know, as the chief mentioned, the current rates are consistent with other municipalities.
How do we know that?
I know there's a document out there. Oh, we checked.
So this year we checked. That's what I'm asking.
There's a document out there somewhere. Michael Malone was working on something. So I can certainly go back and look at it. But as far as I can recall, the police fees, at least for parking, were at an appropriate level. Parking.
For this year.
Well,
I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, they were put into place in a prior year. I'm trying to find the line item in the budget book.
Right, so I'm just looking to determine when is the last, so 2014, 2015, I'm assuming that's when we raised the rates. I am asking, when is the last time we did a comparison? And I don't want to, you're telling me we did it this year.
Actually, it's fiscal 17. If I'm reading these revenues correctly, in the budget book, you'll see that the line for parking tags in fiscal 16 was roughly $66,000. In fiscal 17, that jumped to $200,000. And it's remained at that level. And in the fiscal 21 budget, we are forecasting almost $220,000. That page 3 of the budget book, under fines, forfeits, and penalties, the very first line.
Right. I apologize. I will, I don't think I'm communicating effectively my question. When is the last time we compared what we're charging to what they're charging? I understand when is the last time we raised the rates. I am asking, when is the last time we verified that our rates are in line? Am I understanding that we did it this year or we didn't? I'm not asking that we have to necessarily raise the rates. I am asking, when did somebody take the time to compare? Are we still in line with other municipalities? I don't think that's been answered yet.
I can verify for you, but my understanding is that the project that Michael Malone was working on, looking at all fees, included the parking fees, comparing them to other municipalities, and that would have been last year. But I will validate that for you.
Okay, because I think it would behoove us that part of a best practice is that those are things that we are consistently looking at. That, at least in my limited experience, that, people tend to do that.
Yeah, typically, you're absolutely right. Typically, what should happen is every 3 or 4 years or so, you should go back and revalidate the levels against your neighbors and other municipalities.
Right. Thank you. That was my 2-question limit, so I'll wait for my turn again. Muted myself while I was still talking. Anyone have any other additional questions? Mayor, I did see you raising your hand. I apologize. I will. Go ahead. Let the mayor know she wanted to talk.
Can
Yes,
everybody
ma'am.
hear me? Okay, I got to make sure of that. No, I just wanted to piggyback off of what Frank Japlinski was saying. Michael Malone, one of the items and work that he has been tasked with is to reevaluate all user fees, fines, and everything. We've done some. He's moving along with it. Him and I had a conversation actually today about that and some other items. So to your point, yes, we are checking not only the police department and their fines, but for every department, anyone who raises, revenue and charges, we're going through that and giving a report. Now, some things we've already changed, but we're in the process. So we're going to go through everything. That's one of the initiatives, actually, that was outlined when we got under Marv, and we've been doing it now for this year and the past year. And we have, as I said, you've seen the 2 ordinances. We're picking up some money from the building department. So it's a tedious thing, but he is double checking, and I've been assisting him with that as well.
Thank you.
Councilwoman, may I
Anyone
add
else?
to that, Councilwoman, may I add
Chief,
to
of
the
course.
discussion of revenue?
Yes, sir.
Just so that everyone is aware, the city adds on an 18% surcharge administrative fee to any of the officers that work for a vendor on the street or within the city. So if you see an officer out working with the UI or the phone company, his salary for that day and the administrative fee is tacked onto that as 18%. We also charge $25 an hour for the use of a vehicle if an officer is required to have a vehicle at that location. In fiscal year 19, the administrative charge that the city received from the officers working, we call them construction jobs, was $308,081. So far, up till March 31st of this year, the city has collected $221,448. So in 2 years, that's well over $500,000 that the police department has provided in revenue to the city. That in itself would pay for vehicles, so they wouldn't have to be bonded, and it wouldn't come out of one dime of tax money. It would be on monies that was earned as a surcharge from the officers working construction jobs. That will increase significantly because with the signing of the new contract, as of April 3rd of this month, or this year rather, the outside work rate for officers has increased. Therefore, the 18% charge that the city receives will increase. It would make sense to me. I don't know. I'm not a finance person, but I do know numbers. And if that amount could be somewhat separated from the general fund in some way, shape, or form, that would pay for every vehicle that the police department would need on a yearly basis. All right, thank you. I'm done. You can get off my soapbox.
No, I thank you for that very powerful testimony on how we could fund the vehicles without bonding. I'm sure Frank was taking notes. Did anybody have a follow-up questions for the chief?
Chairman Hosky, I actually have, this is Barry Cohen. I actually have a follow-up for Frank, if I may. It goes, actually, I in the second Rotary, I know that Chairperson Quagliani covered this already, but it was also on my list about the camera concern in the cell blocks, being security and safety. And I'm happy to hear, I understand that about $64,000 of it they have 120,000 in the 5-year capital plan for 2022. So in essence, if I understand correctly, and maybe I'm not understanding correctly, that let's say about half of those cameras could be purchased in 2021, or do we purchase all the cameras at one time? Because I'm seeing a capital plan of 120. I understand how we're going to be able to purchase some of it for 64,000, but I'm more concerned about making sure that we can purchase all the cameras, the whole 120 that is currently. So Frank, can you clarify for me where that would leave us in the capital plan? Would it reduce the 2022 down to like 60,000, or would it eliminate it? Need a little assistance. Thank you.
Well, whatever we spend from the capital non-recurring, you'd be able to take off of whatever we have to bond for.
Okay, and so that leads me to my concern, just a general concern, is I think that's great that we're able to fund a little more than half of the camera cost, if you will, to ensure the security and safety of our officers and our prisoners for that matter. But I'm basically, as a general note to my other council members, is I strongly suggest that for the remaining 60,000, that we make sure that it's part of 2021 and it should not wait. Plan expenditure. I urge us as we go through this budget process.
Councilman Cohen, you're going in and out, so you may want to just go back a little bit. When you started saying, I urge my other council members, I didn't hear anything.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
The bottom line is there's about a little less than $60,000 that would still be necessary to fund the cameras as part of a capital plan in 2021. And I just want to make sure that although we have $64,000 that we're able to, if indeed the police department decides to come to the council for approval, that still leaves another 60,000 hanging out there that I would like to see moved into 2021. And given it's only $60,000 compared to some other capital expenditures, I hope that we as a team, as a council, can work towards transferring that over some way into the 2021 capital. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Does anyone else have any? Councilwoman Hamilton, please.
Yes, thank you. I just needed some clarification, Chief, if you could. When you said an officer works extra duty and that cars are needed and, for the vendors, does that money go back to the police department or a general fund? I don't know if that was answered. I'm sorry.
If it was up to me, it would come back to the police department, but it gets lost in the general fund. So it's that black hole of the general fund that everything gets swallowed up and never sees the light of day again.
Thank you. That's it, Councilwoman.
Does anyone else have any additional questions?
Yes, Bridget, can I ask a question, please, to Frank?
Yes, Councilman Bruno.
Thank you. Frank, when you go to the 5-year capital plan, when you go under 2023, 2022, we got $284,520 put aside for cars. There? No?
I'll call you tomorrow, Bob. I was trying to get confirmation from Bob Z as to where the money from the 18% goes.
We appreciate that.
It does go back to the general fund. It is in the revenue page. So if you take it, you now have to find money somewhere else to cover other expenses, as would every other department that generates revenue. So I'm sorry, Councilman, your question was on the capital?
Go to 5-year plan and you look at 2023, 2022, there's $284,520 put aside. How many cars does that equate to?
That would be 5 cars per year.
The 5-year plan, they would get 5 new cars per year. And that equals 284, 520 per year.
Let me find the line item here. Police vehicles. Yes. Yes, that is, I believe it's 5 cars every year, and they've identified the vehicles by plate number as to the timing as to when those need to be replaced.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman, can I jump in here for a second?
One thing to remember.
Frank, that from the fiscal year 21 to the fiscal year 22, it's a 47,420 difference. That equals out to 6 cars at the 284 number. I'll take 6.
Oh, 5. It must be 5 in fiscal 21 and 6 beyond that.
That's what I'm hoping your figures equate to, 6 cars.
All right, let me.
284 or 520 for 5 cars don't add up.
Yeah, that's 5 cars. The ballpark figure for the cars right now is just over $47,000 turnkey. It's about 47,420, and that's exactly what the difference is between the 21 number and the 22 number. So
that's right. Okay.
You're right at 6 cars.
It would be 6 vehicles per year beginning in fiscal 22 then, and 5 in 21. And I'm just trying to access the network so I can get the detail.
I'll take 6, Frank.
I believe that's what it is. Now, one thing to remember too is as those police vehicles get replaced, they're typically, the ones that do get replaced are given to the city side to replace the vehicles on their end. By adhering to a rigorous and structured replacement policy, all you would theoretically have to do is replace the police vehicles. And at that point, the cars that are being handed to the city would no longer be beaten down to such a degree that you would have to also go out and buy, passenger cars for the city individuals.
Okay, Frank, I appreciate it because I was just trying to figure out how many cars they're going to get each year. I appreciate it. Some of the cars that we're running now don't belong on the road. Thank you.
That's true, and it's going to take a few years to get to where we can give you cars that are actually worth anything for other city employees to operate.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Bridget.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for the chief? Any follow-up? Chief, I do have 2 things. One is the study that we put aside for the pension study. I don't know if you've heard, but we didn't receive any bidders. I did ask Corp Counsel again today about when he thought that it would be sent out again. When that's still a work in progress. Seeing how he's dealing with other things to do with the pandemic, but I'm hoping we're going to be hearing more about that soon. It is very near and dear to my heart. I want to get that as quickly as possible to try to figure out how we can get the men and women of the West Haven PD back on a pension. So more to come on that. I do apologize that there's been a delay. One thing I did want to ask Frank, I think it would be, is a couple of months ago, weeks, I don't know, I had mentioned about our collection practice, and Chief, you might want to maybe touch on this too. And I said, I just didn't think it was a good idea that we forever bill people after the fact. That time and time again, we find out that people don't pay their bills for the West Haven Police Department. If they're having traffic you know, patrolmen having to deal with traffic, that we send them a bill later when we have outstanding debt from other people, from businesses in the community. Have we looked at changing that practice? Have we finally taken the suggestion that, you know, they put a security deposit or some type of deposit with us to say, you know, you need to give us this money up front?
We did nothing on regarding that. Because how would you actually bill that if you don't know how long you're going to be on site?
I think you can give it your best guesstimate. From my conversations with the chief, and chief, if I get this wrong, please correct me, that there are people that come back yearly, you know, organizations that do things down at the beach, and they're billed a certain amount. The bill tends to be the same amount for different runs or different events, that you have a bill, you can get a deposit. I mean, there were businesses, I think it's Halleck's, is it Halleck's and Sears that owes us money? Because we gave them a service and Halleck's has been gone, or Sears has been gone for quite some time, and they haven't paid that bill yet. And I get that we get late fees, but I just don't understand. Kind of cell phone companies bill you a month in advance. Cable companies bill you a month in advance. Why can't the city of West Haven bill people in advance? We're strapped for money. I mean, if you're telling me that you had a meeting and it was determined that it wasn't the best practice, but I feel like I'm hearing, I mentioned it, I talked about it on several different occasions, and somebody just ignored me again. I don't understand why I'm constantly ignored. And that's just frustrating.
I don't think that we're ignoring you. I think that if I could figure out how to do it with the staff I have and still get everything else done, then we could implement it. Because there is going to be a time consideration of reconciliation, right? Well, we'll build them an estimate, and then at some point, someone's going to have to go back and reconcile what we build them against, how much it really should be, and how much it should be is coming off of the payroll system. So there's going to be an extra level there. I can ask the question to see how involved it is. I can check with Lisa in the morning to see what's involved with the billings.
Okay. Chief, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
When you provide some of those services, if you're going to, I don't know all the services you provide, so I'm a little bit behind the eight ball on it, but if you're going to provide traffic flow assistance, is there a minimum? Like, will you send your guy out there for just 1 hour, 30 minutes?
Contractually, it is a 6-hour minimum for vendors.
So we could contractually get the 6-hour payment up front.
The problem that comes about with that is sometimes the contractors don't know how many times they're going to be in the city of West Haven. If it's a large project, for example, the intersection at Route 1 and Campbell Avenue, where that went on for several years, I think that would be an easy example to bill in advance. If there is an issue with a phone or a UI wire, that's on a day-to-day, sometimes a week-to-week, but it's usually a day-to-day issue that they deal with. They'll call, and very rarely do they say we need someone for an extended period of time, unless it is like a project like the Route 1 and Campbell Avenue, the exit 42 ramp. Those went on for years. But any of the other jobs that they go to, it's a day-to-day call-in for whomever needs an officer at a specific location.
Okay. And what about when you're providing, like if an event needs a police officer due to the amount of individuals? I'm not sure what event we were having, but they said at a certain amount that you had to have a police officer there. I'm not sure what the number is, but is that a minimum as well?
Yes and no. It's a minimum if it's a non-Board of Ed event, it goes to 6 hours. If it's a Board of Ed event, it's still at 4 hours.
Right. So I'm basically thinking, I mean, the Board of Ed, we definitely get our money from them. I'm just thinking of other companies that we would have to provide this service for, that if we do know that there's a minimum that we could get that money in up front in lieu of chasing them for the money later.
The only thing that would come to mind would be like in a scheduled event. Yale University football games, University of New Haven football games. Most of the other events are subject to weather. There's also, most of them are city run. The Savin Rock Festival, the fireworks, etc.
Okay. That's all that I have. Does anyone else have anything to follow-up questions for the chief? That's a no. Well, Chief, I just want to thank you for coming and meeting with us tonight. We really do appreciate it. Please tell your men and women that we said stay safe. We hope you stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you. Would there be any questions from the panel regarding the animal control budget?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have Chief Esposito. It's 7:04. I am able to see everybody.
Has left the meeting.
I am able to see everybody now, so we will allow Chief Esposito, if you want to just tell us who's in the room with you and give us your presentation, or if you want to say anything, you have the floor. Can you unmute him?
Can you hear me? Bridget?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Members of the council, under these circumstances, I have Chairman Iris Diaz.
Hello.
Vice Chair Corey Nunley.
Hello.
Commissioner Fred Brown, Debbie Brooks, and myself were here. We're here doing the budget, and it looks really good to us. We have a few items which we would like have restored what we asked for. They were cut a little bit, but overall, we're pretty good with what we see on the numbers. You have any questions for us?
Bear with me. Does anybody have any questions for the chief or any of the commissioners that he has with him this evening? Councilwoman Hamilton.
Good evening. First, I want to just thank Chief Esposito for all that he's done in the interim of finding our permanent chief. I think it's been almost a year and a half, and you kept us safe, and I just want to say thank you. And Chairwoman Diaz, thank you. It's good to see you back in that seat. Excuse me. And Corey, welcome. This is your first city budget meeting.
Yes.
Welcome to you. And Debbie, thank you for answering questions when I call there. You don't hesitate to answer my questions, no matter how frivolous they might be. And I thank all the men on the force also. And I also want to give thanks to Representative Michael DeMassa for securing that state money of $900,000. It does give relief to the Allingtown residents. We haven't felt that in a while. So I just want to give a big thank you to him. And I will come back with questions later. Chairman Hosky, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hamilton. Does anyone else have any questions for the chief or anyone this evening?
Yes,
Liani? Oh, I'm sorry.
sorry,
I
go ahead.
didn't see you raise your hand. I'm sorry, Councilman. No, please do. You have the floor. Councilman Bruno, you have the floor.
Thank you. Chief, can you tell us the status of the firehouse as far as repairs go? As far as your, the status on the repairs on any of the firehouses, please?
Sure. Minor Park is relatively good shape. We have a small chimney issue that has come to light in the last few weeks. We need to get an estimate on that. That's the main station that we run everything out of. We are tight as far as room for us to operate, but we're doing the best we can. With the pandemic right now, we have a lot more supplies up there and equipment we need to wear, and we're making the best of it up there. The circumstance. Admiral Street is a little more complex. Everybody knows we don't have any parking here. We've only got space where the building sits, but we've just had a roof put on. Thank God we got that done, but we have some issues with the structure itself. We're losing some of the mortar. The front facade is coming loose, and we seem to have developed some cracks in the building, which is still getting evaluated at this time.
Okay, Chief. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I have nothing else, Bridget. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Chairman Quagliani?
He's the one.
Thank you. Hi, Chief. How are you, commissioners?
Hey, good. How are you?
Chairman.
Good. Again, just speaking.
I kind of miss you at UNH,
Well, I'm still there. You're just not there, right?
I duck in and out there.
Again, take the time to thank you, and please pass along to your men the council's appreciation for the hard work they do day in and day out, especially in this environment. It doesn't go unnoticed, so thank you. Just a couple of quick questions I have. So, and again, Councilwoman Hamilton recognized Representative DeMassa, which was it's a huge help to the residents of Allingtown and to the fire district. So thanks to him. Part of that money, it says, is going to be used for capital projects. Are any of those projects identified yet?
Not yet. You mean the 250,000?
Yes.
That's a new item, I guess. We haven't really had time to discuss exactly what we're going to do with it.
All right, but those are monies that'll obviously be used for some type of restoration project or something that falls in line with. I know you've had several needs over the years that aren't met. I was just wondering if there's any particular projects you had identified already.
Not at this time. We know we've been asking for a new engine, and that's on the front burner, but this building unfortunately is too, whatever course they're going to take in the future.
Okay, and my other question is regular wages went up 33%. Is there Is that fully funding of a fire chief? Is that what the reflection is in that increase?
Yes.
You want to tell them?
Sure. Ron,
Debbie's got to answer that.
yes, that's fully funding a chief, a deputy chief, and myself. We only had it partially funded for last year, so
Okay.
that would be fully funded.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
Anyone else have any questions? Councilwoman Hamilton?
Thank you. I was wondering if, where we are with hiring a chief. Has the process begun?
Well, hi, this is Iris, Commissioner Diaz, and we have been in the talks about hiring a chief. We're glad that the money is there in the budget. In the talks, however, due to the pandemic, we had to put it on hold to further notice. But that is one of our main goals going forward, once this is,
Okay, thank you. I have another question, if I may. On the line, I guess I can call it tools and miscellaneous equipment. It looks like there was a request for 81,000. The mayor's amount was 66,000. What exactly is tools and miscellaneous equipment?
Do you want to explain Scott Bottles, Mike?
You have the list, right?
I have the list, but go ahead and tell me what Scott Bottle is.
That covers a lot of our equipment and tools, but we upped it this year because some of our air packs, breathing apparatus need to be replaced by the end of this year in December. No longer be up to standard to be able to be used. Applied for a grant for $174,000 to replace 19 air packs, but we're not guaranteed we're going to get the award. So if we don't get it, we'll replace 7 of them by the end of 2020. That's why we upped it, and that's why we like it restored back to the 81.
I'm sorry, can you tell me exactly what equipment you're talking about? I missed it.
Okay, part of that is air packs, life packs that we use for the paramedics. There's some new equipment we like to replace. One is a positive pressure ventilation fan. We need an additional 4-gas meter. And part of our replacement batteries comes out of that for different tools we have.
Thank you.
Got that? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Hi, Chief and Commissioners. It's Councilwoman Hosky. I do have a few questions. Chairwoman Diaz, this is for you more than likely. I understand from when you answered that you said that you have kind of, are at a standstill in regards to hiring a permanent chief.
correct.
How far in the process did you guys get? Did you post the job and get resumes? Like, where are you in that? We've been talking, we talked a couple months ago, so I'm more than interested in
We're in the beginning stages. We were talking about it because it was a slow when we found out about the funding. But we're in the beginning stages of it. We have not posted anything yet. We're in the works because I would like to know the steps that are needed to do it properly. And I was in the midst of doing this, and then this is when the pandemic, everything just stopped us completely.
Okay. Did you get the information you needed Do you?
With Mayor Rossi, who asked me about the position of chief. And when I found out that we had the money in the pensionary, not the pension, but the budget, I did share with her that we were going to, I was gonna meet with the board, we were gonna talk about it and formulate a plan to go forward.
Right. So as a follow-up, my 1.1 and 1.2, so I have a few questions. So Frank, it was my understanding that there was money for a chief and from at the second half of this year. In 2020, they have money in their account for a chief.
Mm-hmm.
There is. This process should have started 3 months into this current fiscal year. It's typically a 3 to 4 month process from, initially putting the position out there, going through the testing process, going through the process. It takes at least 3 months. So yeah, definitely should have been started somewhere around month 4 of the fiscal year.
So what are the plans for that money now?
I just want to that with the previous leader that we had a stall, so we didn't look into this right away. So
I'm sorry, Commissioner, Chairwoman Diaz, please tell me, we were talking over each other, so I didn't hear what you were saying.
I'm saying with the previous chair, it was not executed right away to look into this, and there were other things going on with the MARB, and we were at a halt with that as well. So there was a little give and take here and a lot of stuff going on at the moment, but now with this pandemic, it just totally stopped everything.
Right. No, and that's fine. I just know that there's money there, and I'm wondering what the city has plans. If the city has plans for that money, or is that money being left in your budget, and can we transfer it somewhere to do something that you guys need done? So that's kind of where I'm leading this conversation, is because that money's there, because we want to hire somebody. What are we gonna do with it? So, Frank, are there any plans for that money, and how much money is there? Because from what I'm gathering, they're not going to be able to hire a chief in 2020.
There's probably about $50,000 sitting there, $56,000 in the current year budget. So if they don't use any of it, which it sounds like they're not going to be able to, they'd have to do something this year. I mean, it can't be carried over into another year.
Right. Have we had those discussions with the chief or Chairwoman Diaz to say you have $56,000? You're not going to be able to hire a chief. What are our thoughts? I mean, what are we doing with this money? Because it has to go somewhere.
Bridget?
Not had those conversations. They get the monthly financial reports.
Plus we had to put the end.
Have done budget transfers to cover other needs, but I don't know if they've looked to see if there's anything they could use that money for.
Debbie?
Did you want to say something, Chief Esposito?
Debbie has something.
Debbie's gonna speak on the.
Debbie, I'm sorry.
All right.
Debbie.
Well, first of all, we, Deputy Chief Esposito's been acting Chief Esposito, so we had to give him the difference between Deputy Chief and acting Chief pay. So that took about almost $7,000 of the money there. So it is a little bit lower than $57,000, $56,000. We have discussed a little bit just ourselves here, and we haven't even brought it to the commission yet because we haven't had a meeting this month. A few things that need to be done within the building or for the building, but we can't move forward with that at this time because of the pandemic and everything that's going on. But we have discussed with some of that money could be used well.
Okay. I would
we're over, we had to take money from somewhere else. We were over on some line items. We had to put an engine in the engine this year that was not budgeted for, it was unexpected, so that came from somewhere else.
Right.
Our medical supplies have been really astronomical, and now with this pandemic, it's even gonna be more.
Okay.
There are things that we have to look at as we keep going forward, getting through this time, and then see what we have left. Use for other things.
No, great. I was just curious. Does anyone else have any follow-up questions that they'd like to? Councilwoman Hamilton?
Thank you again. I didn't acknowledge you, Commissioner Brown, forgive me. Hi.
Not a problem.
A question that I had is how many men are on our force right now?
19 plus me, 20, we're short one right now.
And a two.
Or two if you count the other.
So we have to hire,
We have one vacancy.
we have a vacancy. Okay. How long have we had that vacancy?
Over a year and a half. We hired, we just had the 1 year anniversary of the last guy we hired, so it was fairly over a year and a half, probably closer to 2 years.
Okay, so how's the process going with hiring this firefighter? Where are we?
Tell you the truth, we run a split list. We hire EMTs and paramedics. And we have no more paramedics on the list. We're looking into the legality of terminating the list early and running another test. Because school starts in August and we need to run a test in June if we're gonna get somebody into school in August, so that they could be out and probably in the firehouse by December. The current list expires in September, but we're not gonna gain anything off of that list because there's no more paramedics on it, so we need to do the legalities of terminating it and starting the list, and hopefully we get some medics and we can get somebody in school. I think school starts on August 24th, I think.
Gonna be tough.
Maybe there'll be some delays with everything. Maybe August isn't really August with all this stuff going on. So maybe we can get, we can get started on that. We don't want the city to be in danger because of being short staff and protective, and firefighters and stuff like that. I thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to say the guys are doing a hell of a job in all this. And they're really stepping up. They're doing their best to protect the public.
Yes, I'm proud of my fire department. Thank you.
She's always bragging.
Well, that's my old classmate.
Well, to be honest with you, we're very proud of her too, so she's done a great job with this.
Okay.
Thanks,
Chairman Quagliani, did you have a follow-up?
I did. First of all, it's your young classmate, not your old classmate.
There you go.
And Frank, I would imagine that, I mean, we're talking about this money. If in fact they don't use the money, it falls to their surplus at the end of the year, right? I mean, it's a separate district, so it doesn't go back to the city. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have, can I go? Because, no, I'm joking. Mayor Rossi, no, excuse me, please, go ahead.
My idea would be, if there's any extra money and it can be projected out, that truly they should really think about putting anything, I don't care if it's $5,000, put it on the pension. They are severely underfunded, and I would hate to see them get a tax increase next year on, that if they can possibly, because the more they show that they're making progress, and we made progress this year. I want to say we went up like 4 or 5% as the ARC funded correctly, and the ARC is going to be funded again correctly. That would be important. I also wanted to say that I did reach out to Chief Esposito and also Chairwoman Diaz. There is a good opportunity, but naturally it's not, for me to say. Doug had reached out with a grant that would additional possible firefighters. It's a 3-year grant. It would pay 75% the first year, 75% the second year, and then it would go to 33% of the salaries. So it's something that I want to discuss with both the chief and Chairwoman Diaz, because Doug said that we have to give him an answer by Monday. So it's rather important that we move it along. So I don't know if it's something that they're looking for to increase the firefighters, but it would be if there was a volunteer that became a full-time firefighter or a part-time firefighter that became full-time. There's certain criteria for the grant. But I always think it's very, very important. Any grant opportunities that we can do, even if we have to put in some matching funds in this particular case like this, it would be 25%. I think it's good to explore it.
Were you able to send that to the Shore and the Center districts too, or is that just for municipality?
Doug told me for Allingtown, so I can reach out and find out if it can go to both Center and West Shore, and I'll do that tomorrow. But I know when it came to me, it was for the Allingtown Fire District.
Right. I'm just wondering if they themselves can apply, and that would be, magnificent. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you so much, Mayor. Councilman Bruno?
Has joined the meeting.
To the chief and to the commissioners over, do a really good job for what they have to work with. And I just want to say thank you to them for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question. I'm sorry, Peter. I was in the middle of talking myself, but sure, Councilman Massaro, you go right ahead.
Sorry. You can finish what you want to say.
Just go ahead. It's fine. Thank you.
Just for everybody's information, federal grants are offered to every fire department throughout the country. So any fire department gets the same kind of grants as we do. So it all depends if you could sustain hiring those firefighters and pay them later on, if their budgets can handle it. I tried it many years ago when I was there, and we couldn't sustain hiring the extra people at the time because we wouldn't make it. Because at that time we had a pension and we didn't have a 401k. So maybe things are different now with the 401k. We could sustain that. But that all depends if people would want to stay. They got the right to leave too after you hire them under that grant too. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Massaro. I had a couple of questions. Frank's not there. Chief Esposito, can you follow up and advise? When we met a couple of weeks ago, we had talked about raising fees and trying to determine if we are in line with the fire departments, with other municipalities. What came of that, and did you decide with Chief O'Brien and Chief Scapello? I think I butchered his name. Thank you. What happened with that?
We discussed it, but it's actually, we put on the back burner due to current crisis for all that. We just haven't gotten to it. I mean, last month and a half, it's just been meetings and updates and just trying to keep everybody safe here. We've locked down the firehouse, everybody knows, and we're trying to keep our personnel from not getting exposed to it. And hopefully this thing clears. We'll go back to it in a few weeks.
Okay. Frank, I just had a question. To move any of that money that 50,000, whatever, for the line item transfers, it would have to come before the council to determine where that money went, correct, for approval?
Correct.
Okay, because I agree with the mayor wholeheartedly that, you know, if there is any additional money, that we should take a very serious look at getting more money into the pension. Absolutely. That is.
That's why the original budget did not include the 900,000 because we hadn't gotten confirmation that it was actually about 2 days before the budget was ready to go to print. OPM called and said that the money was there. So for the sake of transparency for the citizens, we wanted in there as the line item, and then identify a piece of it that can be used, because I know the chief had been talking about issues with the building and some other equipment, but the bulk would be going towards the unfunded pension liability.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a really good, yeah. Does anyone else have any questions?
You want to talk about the liability insurance? You want me to do it? Yeah. Okay, I have one other concern here, Bridget. Our liability premium. We had it at 42,000 and it was lowered to 40,000. We really need the 42,000 for that. I've gotten pricing from them and we need the 42,000. It's not going to change. I don't care if you take 2,000 from the unallocated contingency fund and put it there, but we need 42,000 in that line item.
Frank, do you have any thoughts on that? Why, or Mayor, why you only did 40,000? Did you?
Historically, they've never even come close to 40,000.
Mayor, you're muted. Madam Mayor, did you want to?
No, I was going to say that Frank took care of the Allingtown budget, seeing as how he has some experience. So yes, he would be able to answer the questions about that.
So if you look at fiscal 17 through 19, made it to $36,000.
Okay.
So I played with the budget a little bit, quite frankly, with the goal of not having to raise the mill rate again in Allingtown.
So as far as what Debbie was saying, that she did some research and that she needs 42. Debbie, did you share that information with Frank?
I put the budget in at once and I was never told they were going to lower it, so.
Okay. Would you mind sending that over to us? Getting a copy to Frank and then maybe sending it to
I'll take a look and see if I got that if it was going to go up or not.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Is there, and you said that was unfunded liability?
No, it's liability insurance. It's insurance.
Liability insurance. I'm sorry. I couldn't remember the liability insurance. All right. Thank you. Was there anything else you wanted to tell us?
Well, there is one line item that I have to talk to Frank about that, I'll move on. Let me just see here where we're at. We had discussed the educational, it says educational reimbursements. It's like the last expense on our budget. 103,125.
Yeah, that's the payment to the guys that you had in there.
Right. That number that you put with a 56180, is that a Is that a payment that comes out of payroll?
No.
We need it to be a 5,100.
Why
It's not a reimbursement. It's not a reimbursement.
does it go there? Does it actually get charged there from payroll? Because if you look at the actuals, I don't see how it's flowing there.
It comes out of payroll. It goes out of the other expense, the 800 line item for payroll.
Okay, but my question is, I guess, all right, I'll have to talk to Doug to see where the system actually settles it in the ledger.
Okay. All right.
Being paid by payroll, it may not necessarily show in a payroll account.
Okay.
Okay. So have one thing. So Chairwoman Diaz.
Yeah, you go, girl.
It's my understanding from when we spoke a couple of months ago that you were looking to have a contract, like we talked about hiring the chief, and then there was also a contract for Debbie. Was that ever resolved? Are you?
The mayor's assistant was trying to have everyone that was supposed to be in the meeting, actual date. And due to different conflicts, that has never been, date has never been selected. And I'm sure now with everything going on, it's not gonna take, it's not gonna happen right away, but we did, the mayor's office, they reached out to me by email and said that they were looking for dates that we can accommodate in the end.
Okay, because I knew that was a concern of yours. Chief Esposito, I just wanted to follow up. I have, in the Center District, reached out to my chief, and I had asked about our budget and whether or not we were going to have a mill increase, and that I'm still completely against us having a mill increase if we did not take the time to do our due diligence and look at the fees. I do respect the fact that we are in the middle of a pandemic that's been going on for the last 4 to 5 weeks, but we met prior to that. And I am happy and I am pleased that that you do not have a tax increase in your fire district, but I don't know that to be the case for the Center District yet, and I don't know that to be the case for the Shore. And it was my hope that by looking at these fees and really diving in and trying to do something would prevent the residents from being impacted. So I am just being honest with you. Personally, that is disappointing. I'm going to wait till I see the budget. I don't know what's going on in the Shore, if their budget has been released, but if there is a mill increase, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed because it was, I believe, quite a few weeks ago that I had hoped that you guys would have worked on that. So that's, me and my residents, and, but I do appreciate you guys joining us this evening. And stay safe, stay well, wash your hands, and all that good stuff.
Richard, can I make one more comment before you end it?
Absolutely, sir.
First of all, just so you're aware of it, the Center District legally meets the first Tuesday of the month of May on their budget. And that budget has to be released to the public 10 days before the meeting. So if you drop by the Elm Street Fire Station 10 days prior to the meeting, that budget should be prepared.
Yeah, he's going to send it to me. It hasn't been finalized.
And the other is you have the chairman of the West Shore Commission on your council, Chairman Bruno, and I believe that goes online anyway. So you can quiz him on that. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay safe. Thank you, Chairwoman Diaz, commissioners. I appreciate you guys attending this evening. Oh, Robin, did you want to say something? Oh, you're welcome. All right. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Did ERS join?
I did. How are you?
Hi. There's not a picture. So we're here. If you want to do a presentation, say any words to us, we are all ears.
Sure. Thank you for having me on here. I'm sorry there is no photo. I am on the conference call. Hopefully you guys all got the budget book of what I proposed and what the mayor proposed. And if I could just give you a little bit of history, ERS has handled approximately 142,000 calls this year, which is over 22,000 more than last year. We are doing well with regard to the pandemic, and knock on wood, everybody is safe and sound so far here, so hopefully it stays that way. With participation from the dispatchers, we were able to join in on a citywide multi-agency mass casualty event, which was a very large event that hosted several agencies, and a lot of good training came from that with regard to school shooting and active aggressor trainings. And that was a big deal for us to be a part of a large training like that. ERS has also joined in with installing fiber between 2 points in the city to form a redundancy for the citywide radio that is used to operate the police and fire radio systems across the city, and that's a big attempt to avoid catastrophic failure, so that's a big plus for us. We're also working on replacing some batteries in the rest of the towers at the 4 cell sites that we have in the city. That's not been addressed, and backup hasn't been provided appropriately, but it is now. For this year moving forward, we're looking at finalizing additional trainings with regard to all of the dispatchers and in the standards that are changing. There's a lot of statewide and local changes that are coming that we're participating in all of the advancements of. And our biggest task is to address the radio system that needs a new software upgrade since it's on its end of life cycle. So that's our biggest task and what we have to really address and work on this year. I've also had some dispatchers that unfortunately had to resign suddenly, 2 actually throughout the past fiscal year. So that we did take quite a hit to our department with regard to staffing and vacancies that had to get filled by the rest of the full-time dispatchers that we have. So that did affect our overtime a bit. However, we are finalizing the training for the 3rd new employee, and they're going to be at a reduced cost to the city because the wages will be a lower salary because there's steps for each dispatcher. So that's a benefit for us. And the dispatchers gained, the city gained with the dispatchers going over to the health insurance for the state partnership plan. So there was a reduction with that by a little over, it was approximately 28,000, I believe. So with that and with our subsidy that we get from the state of Connecticut, that's $121,000. Looks like our department is doing very well. And my only drastic change in my budget that you'll notice is with regard to the radio contract that is not been put forward in this budget before, but is an absolute necessity at this point moving forward. So I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
You state your name. I apologize for the record. We didn't have you do that.
Not a problem, no problem. It's Jennifer, and my last name is Amendola.
Perfect. We need that for our records. I apologize. So thank you for that information. Council members, are there any questions that you have for Jennifer?
Madam Chair, Barry Cohen.
Councilman Cohen, go ahead.
Yes. Hi, Jennifer. I'm Barry Cohen.
Hi.
Hi. Well, first of all, you touched on this, and I just want to personally thank you. I know during our January 13th council meeting that I know that the numbers have changed a bit because you have people depart and so forth, but at that time, thank you for joining the state partnership plan, where at that point, your estimate was 34.6 thousand. Even though it's 28,000, it's still 28,000 in the taxpayer's pocket, and I want to thank you for that personally.
Absolutely.
And also, when we took a look at your retirement savings at that time, based on the crew that you had there, that memo that was sent to Beth Sabo, our human resource person, that there's an additional $147,000 in retirement savings that has been reserved. So the new contract was a win-win for the city, as well as the health benefits for our wonderful EMS crew that a number of us value. So I wanted to thank you for that right up front. Okay.
Thank you for noticing that.
Yeah, absolutely. It does not go unnoticed by any of the council members. We're all very pleased with that. My only question that I had, and I think you answered it, it might have been an adjustment, was when I went, I noticed that in the mayor's submitted budget, her recommendation is just slightly lower. She's 2043, the mayor, and yours is 2050. But then I took a look at your worksheets that I know they were done at a different time, and I was scratching my head. I was scratching my bald head, and if I can just bring this up, and it's a bald head, let me tell you. I'm looking at myself and I'm shining really bad. Is you actually, your initial request was actually for just 2005. And then somehow, and maybe my worksheets are incomplete, where it was only a 5.1% increase. And then the final that was submitted to the mayor was a little higher. So are the worksheets just off because of the change of guard of new people, old people? I'm just trying to make the numbers jive, and I wasn't able to. I was trying to look apples for apples.
Yes, I believe that is exactly why. I'm looking at what you're talking about. I do see the number that you have as well, and that was what I had of 5.1%.
Right.
So if I'm doing it as I'm talking to you, yes, that calculates to be why, because of the losses that I've gone through.
Yeah, I was trying to get to that figure, but but otherwise, the rest of your budget, from my review anyway, trying to compare the worksheets to the actual published budget, they look pretty spot on, and I'm happy to see for the most part you're a little short, but I think that it's a very responsible budget, and that's the only questions that I had at this time. Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Cohen. Councilman Massaro?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jen, I got to ask you a couple of questions. You said that the radio system was fixed. So we won't lose any radio contact like we did a couple of times?
Incorrect.
Incorrect?
No, incorrect. The one repair has been made with regard to the tower. That has not failed since that second repair was made. We've been okay with that. We're finalizing a fiber that was dropped with the city to form a second form of redundancy, and the third part would be getting the system maintained. That's in a critical state right now.
Okay.
So we're open with regard to the repair of the tower, and it hasn't failed. I can't guarantee that that's not going to go down again, but that's what we're working on, finalizing the redundancy with the fiber on.
Right, because we were sold, when this was sold to us, the system, that we would never lose any kind of radio contact at all. And what I understand, we lost it, what, 3 times in the last year?
Yeah, 2 times it went down. That's correct.
My other question is this. The radio maintenance contract, is that going out to bid, or are we going to keep with the same company?
I believe the mayor has stated that Frank and Rob Sandella were going to work on an RFP to put that out.
Okay. That's all I have to ask. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for doing a great job, Jen.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you, Councilman Massaro. Does anyone else have questions for Jennifer? Chairman Quagliani?
Thank you, Councilwoman Hosky. Hi, Jan, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. And I really don't have any questions. I looked at the budget. The budget is in good shape. I just wanted to comment, and again, just like I did with the police and the fire, you guys are on the front line as well. So appreciate everything you do and your team does, day to day, and especially in these times that we're in now. But I also want to comment that, the last couple of years, obviously the city's been in some tough shape, and it always seems like ERS was leading the charge to being cooperative and collaborative and willing to step up and help us get out of the issues that we've had financially. So again, a thanks to you and your group for that as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Jennifer? Okay, then. Well, that is all that we have, Jennifer. I don't have any questions.
And all of you, thank you for your time. And
No,
like
thank
I said,
you for
I hope to meet some more of you.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Well, I hope you guys all safe too.
You too, absolutely. You too. Keep washing your hands is what I tell everybody.
Absolutely, it matters.
No, it absolutely does. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
Bye-bye.
You do the same.
Has left the meeting.
Unless anyone else has anything they'd like to say, I will recess the meeting till tomorrow at 6 p.m. All right then. Stay safe and wash your hands.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Yeah, I know.